Well, by now you've heard a lot about this. This is the indictment, the various charges against President Trump. It's 49 pages long. There are 38 charges, 37 involving President Trump. The one against Waltine Nauta, who's a Navy vet and an aide to President Trump, is in here in order to try and pressure him to turn on Donald Trump. That's why they put it in here. Now, some people are very impressed by this. I am very troubled by this. 37 counts against the former president and the leading Republican nominee right now for the Republican nomination for president. 31 having to deal with document retention. Why would you pile on 31 counts when it could be one count or 3 counts or 5 counts? The answer is they want to put Donald Trump in prison. And as I said last week when I was on Hannity, Donald Trump is 76 years old. Some of these counts have 20 years, 10 years on them. If they convict him of one count and he's sentenced to the full amount, he will die in prison. That's how out of control Biden and Garland and this hack prosecutor are. Now, there's some things missing from all this. Despite all 49 pages and all these witnesses and all these documents, what's missing? Obstruction and false statements and this, that, and the other, which are born out of the fact that they criminalized this investigation, as I explained earlier. Had they not criminalized this investigation, none of this would be an issue. So they lay the foundation for conspiracy to obstruct, and all this sort of thing. But what's missing? Retention of documents. There is not a single syllable in this 49-page, 38-count indictment, 37 against Trump, about a single document being destroyed. Not one. You would think if they had evidence of that, it would be right there in the first charge. Number 2, there's not a single syllable in this document alleging that any document was altered. Not one. If there was, and they had evidence to that effect, you'd think that would be in the front. Instead, they're attacking the former president for retaining documents, classified documents, talking about the classified documents. There's not one syllable of evidence in here that any information under the Espionage Act was passed to any spies, to any enemies, to any foreign countries. Not one. The Espionage Act was passed in 1917 under the tutelage of Woodrow Wilson, who was a racist segregationist, and he locked up 2,000 people, the vast majority of whom were innocent because they disagreed with his position. There's something wrong with such a statute. And so this is written for a Democrat jury. And even though the jury will be in Miami, assuming it gets to that point, and it shouldn't, it's going to be filled with Democrats because the most southern part of Florida is filled with Democrats. No, it's not New York, it's not Washington, but it's not Idaho and Utah either. So I want you to keep that in mind. They figure if we can get them on one. The other thing is they have all the resources in the world because they're the government. They're the government. So Donald Trump's lawyers are going to have to take all of this and try and unravel it. That's also one of the reasons they pile on. It's also one of the reasons they had hundreds and hundreds of witnesses, from the janitor to the vice president of the United States. And that's also why they had tens of thousands of documents, because now a private law firm, relatively small firm, is going to have to try and figure out how to unravel what the prosecutor did. Now, I want to remind you of a few things about a grand jury. All it takes is a majority of the people in a grand jury, typically up to 23 or so, to vote to indict. So if it's 23 members or if it's 21, whatever it is, it just takes 12 in Washington, D.C. or in Miami. It takes 12. That's number 1. Number 2, no witness, no target is permitted to have counsel in front of this grand jury. You're there by yourself in front of prosecutors asking questions, and many of them driving an agenda. That's number 2. Number 3, You're not permitted to provide the grand jury with any exculpatory information or contrary information to what the government's feeding them. Grand juries were intended to protect potential defendants against an overwrought and zealous government, but now they've been used. It's been twisted. They're used against individual citizens and so forth, as they've been used against Donald Trump. And so aggressive and out of control is this prosecutor that he went to a Democrat Obama-appointed judge who he knew would give him what he wanted, because her record has been to reject every single motion filed by Donald Trump's lawyers, because she's the motion judge. She's the chief judge in Washington, D.C. when it comes to these grand juries. She gave him again what he wanted. He wanted this prosecutor to get testimony from President Trump's lawyers, including his lead lawyer, about conversations President Trump had with that lawyer and the notes from the lawyer. I suspect some of that is in this document. And so what he's done is he's taken pieces and puzzled together cherry-picked testimony from this witness or that witness, nothing exculpatory in here, no exculpatory testimony or documents, and he's chiseled it and pieced it all together, so you are left with a document that says Donald Trump was a grave threat to the country, the way he handled classified information, the way he handled documents and so forth, the way he retained them, the way he tried to cover up. He moved boxes. He told people to move boxes. He motioned somebody about getting rid of something, which is why I started out this segment by asking, how many documents were destroyed? There's not an allegation in here that any documents were destroyed, not even one. How many documents were altered or molested? There's not an allegation in here that any were altered or molested, period. False statements, conspiracy to obstruct, retention of documents, obstruction. All of this comes out of the criminalization of this case, and this is what prosecutors do, and what this prosecutor, this Justice Department, this Attorney General, and yes, this President Biden have done, is they have destroyed the country. And I don't know if we can ever get it back. They've destroyed something that matters to each and every one of us. They talk about suppressing the vote. They've destroyed the next election. They've interfered with the next election. This isn't natural or normal for America. This is taken out of the Joseph Stalin playbook.
Want to see more Mark Levin? Go to levintv.com and subscribe now.